So I'm going to start off by giving you all a quick demo of my current company's product, Sprecast. I'm then going to talk a little bit about my experience at Stubhub and some of the lessons I learned there. And finally, I'm going to weave back to Sprecast and talk to you about why I'm so excited about this new opportunity. So I need to figure out how to get a, there we go. I'll figure this out. We've got, there we go, Chrome browser. There we go. So we should have on this one, I will find this. No. Well, this is our, let's see. Oh, you know what? I think it's, yeah, oh, it's one tab back. This one right here? This one? No, it's not. I think this is not in here. Let me, it's okay. I will get it up here. This is pretty straightforward, actually. So we will go to Sprecast.com, opening a new tab. I was going to show you a quick demo of the product. Hopefully this will load up. There we go. I was going to show you a particular Sprecast that happened about 2 weeks ago. This is an issue that is near and dear to many of our hearts here. So this is a quick demo of Sprecast. I'm going to mute this so I can speak over it, but let's see here. All right. So basically, this is a Sprecast that was created about 2 weeks ago by a group called the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, which is a group in Washington, D.C. that pushes for change. And obviously the SOPA PIPA issue was a big deal a few weeks ago, and they had this really interesting conversation. Sprecast is all about dynamic conversations. We're trying to create face-to-face conversations on the internet. So really what we call ourselves is the social video platform that lets people broadcast together. You can see here on this Sprecast, we've got 4 people talking. This is an archive, so this is a recorded Sprecast. 4 people talking. If I open up the browser tab a little bit more, we can see that there were approximately 1,100 people watching this Sprecast during the live Sprecast. Any of those people can participate with text-based chat. They can actually request to join on camera as well. We've got at the top of the Sprecast, above the video, you can see integrations with Google Plus and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. So people who are in the Sprecast can broadcast it out to their social networks and bring in people from their social networks into the Sprecast. So you end up with this highly dynamic and social engaging experience leveraging face-to-face video. It's all in the browser. There's no download required. So sometimes people call it part Skype and part YouTube, but it's really different from Skype in that, one, there's no download required, and 2, it's really meant for public forums, for public discussions, whereas a Skype or an iChat is really more for private conversations. So that's a quick demo of Sprecast. I'm going to show you quickly over here as well. I'm going to need to log in for this one. We have we're actually Sprecasting right now. So there's a camera back there. I'm going to get this up on screen right here. This is actually on, I'm going to log in with my Facebook account. I don't know why the Facebook thing didn't pop up. There we go. This should pop up my little Facebook authentication request. There we go. I'm not going to tell you my password. This was supposed to be set up for me, but somehow it didn't happen. But no worries, Ron, no worries. So, so here we are. I'm now logged in, and so I need to get, all right, so here we go. Refresh that. And so this is embedded on the Vator site as well. Turn the volume down here. So this is embedded on Vator site. You can see, here we go. So we've got somewhere down here 37 participants. You can see down here. It's kind of funky the way it's displaying on the screen here, but there's 37 people actually on the internet watching this. We're going to actually bring some of these people in when I do Q&A at the end. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A here and also maybe bring some people on in the live Sprecast who are participating and watching this. This is embedded on Vator's site, as I was, I think, showing you here up, and then you can see we're on Vator's website, but also This is available on Sprecast.com. So that's the quick demo. I'm going to move on and talk a little bit as well about Stubhub, and then circle back to Sprecast at the end and tell you why I'm so excited about Sprecast. So let's see. I graduated from Penn in 1996. Had a great experience there. 3 of the 4 years I went to Penn, we were lucky enough to win the Ivy League for basketball. So what that means is you go to the NCAA tournament and you get to actually play against teams that are much better than you. So I just, one year, my friends from my fraternity were going to the game, and the day of the game I decided I was going to go too, but I didn't have a ticket. So I went to the game with them. I figured I'd buy a ticket in the parking lot. I figured I'd scalp a ticket. So I get to the game, and sure enough, there's tons of people buying and selling tickets in the parking lot. Vibrant market, but it was very easy to get a ticket, but much more challenging to find a ticket in the same section as my friend. So it was getting closer to game time, so I just bought a ticket in a different section. I figured I'd find my friends in the venue, and I got the ticket, paid for the ticket, and then I realized, you know, there's still a half an hour left. Maybe I can find a ticket closer or in the same section and then trade that ticket and sell the first one. So I did that. I ended up buying a second ticket in the same section as my friends. I sold the first ticket, and sure enough, I went in. I was pretty close to my friends. We kind of got all together. We had a great time. One of the other guys from the other team poured beer on my buddy, and he almost got kicked out. But other than that, it was really fun, and it was really my first insight into, you know, we needed a more efficient market for tickets. And so, roll the clock forward 5 years, and there I was at Stanford Business School in my first year, and I was sitting around. We had a business plan competition every year at Stanford, and I was sitting around with a friend, and we were saying, hey, you know, we'd really like to submit a business plan for the competition. This was in early 2000, so basically, if you recall early 2000, it was kind of the peak of the first internet.com sort of bubble. And little did we know that 4 months later the world was going to fall apart, but we were very intrigued by this whole internet thing, and we thought, hey, let's write a business plan for the competition, and maybe we'll start a company. So we started talking about different markets and different industries, and we started talking about tickets, and his dad was a Lakers season ticket holder. His name is Eric Baker, by the way, my co-founder at Stubhub. And my dad was a Yankee season ticket holder. So both of us had a lot of experience buying and selling tickets and having extra tickets, and I had this other experience I told you about from Penn. And we basically started realizing that it was kind of an interesting market in really three distinct ways. Number one, it was a large market. We estimated, you know, certainly multi-billions, but you know, could be as large as 10 billion. It was a fragmented market in that there was really no dominant national US player, and there was all these sort of mom and pop small businesses, ticket brokers really, who were buying and selling tickets kind of in little regional areas, probably about 1,000 of them we estimated. And then it was a stigmatized market. And you might ask, well, why is a stigmatized market an interesting market? And really, it was interesting to us because we said, you know, there's sort of a fundamental consumer need here, but yet it's this stigmatized, you know, quasi-illegal thing to resell a ticket above the face value. And I'll come back to the laws, but essentially we said, you know, there's no real reason why this should be illegal or stigmatized. We should just, we can create a better system. We can create a market that there's consumer protections and peace of mind. And so that's what we set out to do. And we wrote a business plan for the competition. We were actually accepted for the final round. The name of the company back then was needaticket.com. And then when we actually incorporated, it became Liquid Seats. And then a few years later, it became Stubhub. But we were one of the finalists for the competition, but we said, you know what, we don't actually want to win this thing. So we pulled the business plan out of the competition. And the reason we didn't want to win, and I don't know if we would have won, maybe it was presumptuous of us to think we would have won, but we didn't want to win. And the reason we didn't want to win is because we actually wanted to start the company and we didn't want to attract more attention. So we pulled our business plan out of the competition. We put together a PowerPoint presentation, started, you know, meeting with people, former colleagues, you know, networking, industry executives from the sports and media world, and we got a few people out of a much bigger number who said no. A few people who agreed to give us some capital to start the company. It was about $500,000 or $600,000 in 2000, and you know, that was August of 2000 by then, and by that time the internet had actually sort of corrected and the bubble, the dot-com bubble had burst. But we were able to cobble together some money. We hired some engineers, and by October of 2000, we launched the first version of the website, which was a very rudimentary kind of beta version, really focused just on the Bay Area, where you could buy and sell tickets for Bay Area events. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience at Stubhub and some of the things that I learned from that experience, really 3 or 4 key lessons. So the first lesson that I learned was you really have to have a stomach for a roller coaster ride. You know, we all hear the statistics that a huge number of companies fail, right? I don't know, I hear 2/3, 90%, whatever the number is, some big percentage of startups fail. And that's interesting, but what I think is even in some ways more interesting is that even the companies that succeed have huge ups and huge downs. There's violent swings, right? And it's an emotional kind of, can be stressful sort of period, and it's not just stressful for the people involved, but for the families involved, and so there's a lot of sleepless nights, and it's definitely a roller coaster ride. I'm going to tell you a couple of examples from Stubhub about this roller coaster ride. The first one is, after we raised that $600,000 of our seed capital, we were about 6 months away from running out of cash. Which was decent cash, but I started talking to investors, and this was, again, 2001, so a really tough time to raise capital, particularly for consumer internet businesses. And we just got told no, 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 time after time after time after time. And then we were, sure enough, we were like 2 months away from running out of cash. A lot of the senior team was deferring compensation. And I thought that there was a good chance this may be the end of the road when, the 10,000th person that I was introduced to go talk to go meet, I went and met with a guy by the name of Ed Scott, who was one of the founders of BEA Systems, and told him about our business and brought my team, and he said, I like what you guys are doing, I'll give you $1.5 million. And all of a sudden, we had $1.5 million, we were back in business. 3 months after that, we had a deal with Major League Baseball and AOL, and we had gone in a 3-month time period from literally thinking we may be out of business to sort of doing really well again and kind of having a new life. So I think that's an example if I can go from a real low to a real high very quickly. Another example of going from a high to a low I'll give you, which is, 2006, which is about 6 years later, we were firing on all cylinders. The company was doing hundreds of millions of dollars of tickets. We had, a lot of great press. We had a great team. We had a lot of big partnerships with teams and leagues and media properties. And we were actually in discussions to be acquired by eBay at that time. That was the early on in those conversations, and I get to work one day when everything seemed like it was going great, and this deal with eBay was going to be a really good deal for everybody involved. I get to work, and there's a lawsuit from the New England Patriots. And it wasn't just any lawsuit. I mean, obviously you deal with lawsuits as part of business, but this lawsuit was really going right at the core of our business. So it was sort of saying, what you guys are doing is illegal, more or less, and we're suing you for it. And so, you kind of quickly, and the New England Patriots, I'm sure you all know who the New England Patriots are, but, very well-respected team in the NFL, which is probably the most respected league, very kind of important organization, and you kind of go from being, thinking everything's going great to like a lot of things kind of shaky. I didn't know if that might blow up the deal with eBay, and I didn't know what that was going to mean for the longevity of our company. So again, things can go from low to high, high to low, and I think things change really quickly, and you just got to have a stomach for that. The second thing I learned is if you challenge the status quo, I think you can actually do really well, despite the fact that on the surface it may look to be not that smart. And what do I mean by this? So at Stubhub, we were challenging the status quo. I think there's two good examples of this. The first is just the state laws that I talked about earlier. So there were about 15 states when we started the company that restricted the resale of tickets in some way, shape, or form. It was typically a percentage over the face value or a certain amount of feet from the venue. And a lot of people would say, well, gee, it's kind of sort of illegal to resell tickets in certain ways. Are you sure you want to do that? That doesn't seem interesting. Sort of a negative thing for the business opportunity. And we spent a lot of time, we were very much, we were big advocates of the free market. We spent a lot of time with state legislators and assemblymen trying to teach them the benefits of a free market and the consumer benefits of having an open market for tickets. And we were effective over time actually changing the laws in a handful of states. We always felt like we were on the right side of it from an ethical and a moral perspective, because why should tickets be restricted any more than any other item? Ultimately, obviously that's changed a lot, and I think there's still a few states that have some of these laws, but clearly they're not paying that much attention to it, given that there's some big companies out there, including Stubhub, that are moving a lot of tickets. But basically, that's one example of going against the status quo. On the surface, it may seem, hey, don't do it. I think it can actually pay off big dividends, and it keeps other people out of the business. The second example that we did was of us going against the status quo was really just going against kind of Ticketmaster and their really monopolistic position in the ticketing space. the consumer experience for tickets when we started Stubhub, for most people, was really all about going to Ticketmaster to buy tickets. Did this whole thing just shut down? There we go. Not that there's that much going on there, but basically, the consumer experience was really about going to Ticketmaster for tickets. And if it was sold out, it was sold out. Sorry, you can't go. Sorry, the event's sold out. Or if there were a few seats left in the nosebleed section, that was your choice. And so there wasn't a lot of other options. There wasn't a lot of other choice. And we kind of challenged that. We challenged Ticketmaster as a company, and we challenged the whole notion of being sold out and being, and choice in tickets, and gave people the ability to go to a sold out event, or sit in a seat in an event that may still have tickets, but not in a section that the individual wanted to go to. So, I think, again, when thinking about, gee, do you want to go into a business in a market where there's a monopolistic player like Ticketmaster? Granted, we were a little different. They were focused on the primary market, and we were on the secondary market. And partly that's why I think when you peel the onion, past the sort of surface layer, sometimes what looks like, sort of challenges may actually be an interesting market. The third lesson I learned is to trust your own instincts. So a couple of examples here. I think it's important. I don't mean to not listen to other people. It's very important to listen to other people and to get advice and to think about that advice, and if it changes your opinions, then it changes your opinions. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you think is right, and if you disagree with someone who gives you advice, even if that person is smarter, older, or an industry expert, then you should do what you think is right, and you should trust your instincts. A good example of this was early on at Stubhub, we had some people involved in the company, including some people on the board and senior management team, who thought we should take inventory. People thought we had all this data about tickets, we knew what the prices were, we could buy tickets and then resell them and make a lot more money and really amplify our returns and our margins. And I was never comfortable with that, because I thought there was a lot of risk with taking inventory and maybe not being able to sell it, and plus I thought it would be very difficult to run both a marketplace and be a player in that marketplace at the same time. So ultimately, I kind of went with my own instincts and trusted my instincts, and we did not end up taking inventory. A second example is, early on when we were starting the company, I said when we raised that $600,000, we were talking to some industry executives in the media and the sports industries. And one of the people that we had the opportunity to speak to was a guy by the name of Fred Rosen. And for those of you who don't know, Fred Rosen was the first CEO of Ticketmaster, and so he was like the godfather of tickets. I mean, he was like, and the reason he was an interesting guy for us to talk to is because he no longer was with Ticketmaster by the time we started Stubhub, so he didn't really have any allegiance to Ticketmaster anymore. He was out of the business, and we thought he might be an interesting guy to align with and to get advice from and maybe invest in our company. And when we told him about Stubhub, he said, it's not going to work. You're not going to be successful. You're never going to have a legitimate secondary market for tickets. And so you might say, well, gee, Fred Rosen should know, and you might stop there. But we kind of thought about it and listened to him, but ultimately said, you know what, we disagree. We think this is actually going to be successful, and we kind of went forward anyway. So I think your point there is trust your own instincts. And when I think about these lessons, and really the fourth lesson is, this is probably the most common lesson that anybody ever talks about, but I think it is true, which is it's really all about the people. And when I think about the people that we had at Stubhub, some of whom are now part of Sprecast, some of the key people at Sprecast are former Stubhub people, in all three of those lessons I talked about, the people is really the key. So you think about the roller coaster ride, and so people are obviously key to executing well, but people I think are also key to the moral support during those lows, the moral support during the roller coaster ride. And when you think about, challenging the status quo and going up, fighting, against Ticketmaster or against state laws, again, the people, the army that you have to take on those battles is also the key. And thirdly, when you're, kind of going with your own instincts and maybe not listening to somebody who may be smarter or older, again, if you have people who have shared vision and shared beliefs and who believe in you and who you believe in, I think you can really kind of get past those times and move on. So I think that's a good segue because Sprecast is actually all about people. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Sprecast and why I'm so excited about Sprecast. I believe that there's a big opportunity to bring people together on the internet in face-to-face conversations. And really, Sprecast, as I said, is a social video platform that lets people broadcast together. When I open this up for Q&A, we're actually going to open this Sprecast up for Q&A, and it might get a little more interesting as we bring people who aren't here into this conversation. which hopefully will work. I think it will. So, you know, I think there's a really interesting opportunity to bring people together face to face on the internet. There's two dynamics that I look at when I say that. The first is, it's clear that there's been huge growth in people using video for communications. Skype and iChat and Google Video Chat, these are products that people use to have private communications using face-to-face video. And really they're focused on this kind of private use case. So that's been growing rapidly, and that's, I think, here to stay and is going to likely continue to grow. And in parallel to that, we have people having conversations in public on the internet in lots of different forums, right? On Facebook, on Twitter, on blogs, they'll be in news stories, there'll be comments below a news story, and then people will respond to those comments. And all of these conversations and passionate communities of people that are having conversations on the internet are really happening in a text-based, asynchronous way. And what I believe is the next 5 to 10 years is kind of marrying those public conversations that are happening in a text-based asynchronous way and the private face-to-face conversations that we're seeing on video already kind of coming into this more sort of public face-to-face form as well. And just to clarify, I don't think that we're going to replace the private sort of I don't think we're going to replace either one of those. So the private video communications or the asynchronous text-based public conversations. I just think that this is going to be another forum, another way for people to communicate and express themselves and have conversations in public. So, you know, from a timing perspective, I also believe, you know, this is sort of the time. You know, if you look back over the past few years, it's really only been in the last year or two that doing this in the browser without a download, with a high quality experience is really possible. You could sort of do it 2 years ago in the browser. It didn't really work that well. But where we are now with bandwidth and processing power of the computers we use and bandwidth 4G coming to mobile devices and the processing power of those devices, we're really at a point now where I think this can be done pretty well for most people. Frankly, it's still a little bit early, but all of those sort of barriers those are going away, and the experience is getting better and better. We're also, I think, in a good time for this because we have, you know, all of us now are carrying around mobile devices with cameras. We all have video cameras in our pockets. I hesitate to say all, but a growing percentage of us have video cameras in our pockets. We're taking video of ourselves, of friends, much more than we were 5 years ago. And so you now have this society that's using video kind of wherever they go and including themselves in video. And there's a real shift and a democratization of media where the power is shifting from the institution to the individual, where people, and this, you know, this has been happening for years and I think is still happening, where, you know, individuals are able to create their own content and distribute their own content at sort of a low cost without the support of an institution. So these are some of the trends that I see as, you know, pointing to a good opportunity from the timing perspective for Sprecast as well. We're obviously at the very beginning. So Sprecast is in public beta. We've been in public beta for 2.5 months. So we're at the very beginning of our roller coaster ride, unlike my last experience. And we've already had ups and downs in the, you know, whatever it's been since we started, and I'm sure we'll have many more ups and downs. And we got a great team. As I mentioned, some of the same folks from Stubhub and some other people that we've brought in, we're really excited to be working with, and I think will help us get through those ups and downs. And like the stigma of ticket scalping, we actually have a stigma in our business too. A lot of people think social video, and then they think chat roulette, and then they think, in fact, not only, it was on Aaron's deck, you know, that chat roulette was sort of lost in the chasm, and people think the penis problem, and it's all these problems. So, and by the way, Aaron, great speech. I wish I had half the energy you have. I don't know if you're in here, but I'm probably putting you all to sleep by now relative to that guy's energy. I felt like I stuck my finger in a socket after I heard him talk. But basically, but awesome company, and congratulations, Aaron, wherever you are. So we're really, we're really early on here, and I only have 4 minutes according to this sign right here. So I'm actually pretty much done, and then I'm going to open up for Q&A. We're really excited about even where we've come in 2.5 months. We've got really interesting people using Sprecast to have conversations about, you name it, photography, sports, business, technology, gadgets, fashion, beauty, whatever. People are using it to talk. And we have people, we see a lot of people who are public personas or public figures, bloggers, journalists, celebrities, politicians, athletes, performing artists, using Sprecast to engage with their audience in a new way. So a lot of these people have been using Facebook and Twitter for a long time, and those are great tools, and we're not looking to displace them at all. And in fact, as I said, I think asynchronous text-based communications have lots of advantages at times, but they're using Sprecast to do something they can't do with those tools, which is to interact with their fans and their followers in a face-to-face way. So we've seen people use Sprecast for for disaster relief. We've seen political discussions like the SOPA PIPA thing I showed you, and we've seen lots of different interesting things. So I think we're excited for the next 5 years of social video. I'm really bullish on social video as a whole, and we expect to make Sprecast a player there. That's really all I have prepared for you, so I'm happy to open up for Q&A. I don't think we have much time, but we're going to open it up online for Q&A, and Ron over there is going to bring on people, if anybody from the audience, the virtual audience. Yeah, sure. Let's take a question from the real audience first. Yes, this guy right here.
I see you have a business and finance background. Did you have a technical background as well? And were you one of the developers in the Stubhub when you started Stubhub? Did you code?
Do I code? No, I don't code.
Yeah, so my next question for you then is, without coding, right? So what are some of the challenges, right? So when you give the code to somebody else, it's kind of hard to get what you really need. Like a lot of founders you see, right? I mean, like Facebook or, even with Box.net, they are they are real coders and they coded the application. So I'm sure you would have had some challenges. What kind of challenges did you have that way?
Yeah, so great question. So, I wish I coded, to your point. And, I have an engineering degree and I did take a bunch of computer science classes, but I never have worked as a developer in my career. And, I think it does put me at a slight disadvantage in terms of my ability to really be effective in terms of managing technical people and managing developers. And so I think, you see that a lot with some of the most successful founders have had technical backgrounds and have actually been involved in, more directly in writing code. And I think, at the end of the day, it's just a disadvantage, and I need to make up for that in other ways and have either co-founders or other people involved who do have that skill set. And I've actually thought, even as recently as as the last few months, of trying to learn how to code a little bit more than which is zero, so code at all. And I wish I knew how to do it. I think there's a fundamental problem right now across all of these companies, which is there's more demand for engineering talent than there is supply, and I hope that we figure out a solution to that problem, because I think it's a real problem, and I wish I knew how to code. Yeah, do we have yeah, sure. Oh, great. Looks like we have some people joining us on Sprecast. So, hey, Ryan, you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I do, and it's good to see you again. One of the big questions that I had was, I work very hard to keep people I don't know out, but on Sprecast, I've been friends with people that I have in my country previously. So my question for you is this what you envisioned whenever you created Sprecast, and what do you see as the future for this platform? You see the point?
So I think we're getting a little latency now, probably because I'm not an approved broadcaster, Ron, right? Because I need to be what we're displaying. So that's why I just so our product actually has a little bit of latency when you're in a view-only mode, and I think you need to probably approve that request that I just did. Okay, well, Ryan, I think you asked about the future of the platform. Is that right? Where the future is going? Okay. Well, the first thing we're going to do is try to get rid of latency, which I think we've now figured out, because Ron didn't have us as an approved broadcaster. So there's a little bit of latency if you're just viewing. There's no latency if you're actually on camera, which I'm not technically on camera, but I sort of am on camera. So Ryan, where we see the future of the product going is, the next thing, we've been very focused in the first 2.5 months on figuring out how to extend the platform and make it accessible on different browsers, different platforms. We're working on getting it out onto different devices. But the real next phase for us is making it more social and bringing it to across various social media platforms in a bigger way than what we're doing today. So I think really social is the next thing for us. Thanks for the question, Ryan.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question, or if not, we actually, I think time's up. I think we're a little bit over. Yeah, okay.
Chris, sorry, I can't.
Reality of
I guess we're not going to be able to take your question.
Yeah, exactly.
But thanks very much, Bambi.
Right.
And
great demo, Jeff.
Yeah, the demo, could have gone a little better, but,
No, you're 2 months old, so.
Thanks very much.